You don't want to bring attention to yourself. You want to bring attention to your team. Reggie Miller said that, and I'm saying this. Welcome to High and Low. Good day and good night. Welcome to the High and Low Basketball Podcast. This is episode number 100 and Miller, or Marion, like Sean Marion. Actually, let's go with Miller, aka episode number 131. 31 was the number one by Reggie Miller, also known as Uncle Reg, the Nick Killer, Mr. Mighty Mouth himself, named one of the 75 greatest players of all time before Steph, before Jesus Shuttlesworth or Ray Allen. To you casuals, there was sharpshooter number 31, the former Indiana Pacer. Reggie Miller had so many iconic moments against the likes of Michael Jordan and his Bulls and the aforementioned Knicks of the 90s, though. Those Knicks were no joke and would scare the soul out of any player in the league today. But Mighty Mouth stood toe-to-toe with those guys. Ewing, Oakley, Anthony Mason, John Starks. Man, he was fearless. An absolute legend. Funny thing is that he's a Hall of Famer, and deservedly so, but Reggie Miller still wasn't the best basketball player in his family. In fact, his big sister, Cheryl Miller, was the best Miller.
Wow.
But we'll have to talk about Cheryl Miller and her legendary feats on another episode. Anyway, my name is Ike Amaechi, and today I'm joined by Sean Khan, aka Sean Khan the Don, Sean Controversy. Around here, we live by a principle governed by the high and low lives of the world, which means we talk about basketball especially, and specifically the NBA, and we talk about it at any time, anywhere, north, south, east, west, high, and low. This week on High and Low, we're ranking the top 10 players right now. Yes, we have a small sample size, but let's see where the top 10 players stand as we truck through the first quarter of this NBA season. So stay tuned for that. Before we lock in, let's check in. This week I'm joined by Sean. Miraculously, we were supposed to have Mitch Orsatti in the mix this week, but Mitch had an emergency at the last minute. Hope all is well on his end. But last week, if you remember, Sean shared that he was expecting a second child at any moment. And Sean, I have to be honest, like I said just before we jumped on the podcast, I was expecting you to text me with a sorry, can't make it, baby's coming. I was just like, it's coming any moment.
I almost did, and I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't know Mitch was not going to be here, so I didn't want to leave you hanging by yourself.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Hey, thank you for joining me. And listeners, thank you for joining us for yet another installment of the program. Another week, another episode, more NBA, some more high and low. This week in NBA history, the Pistons tried to kill the NBA. On November 22nd, 1950, the Minneapolis Lakers hosted the Fort Wayne Pistons at the Minneapolis Auditorium. The Lakers were the defending champs. They had won their last 29 home games, and the Pistons knew they couldn't beat this team head-to-head, which is why Pistons coach Murray Mendenhall, well, he had his squad implement one strategy: stall or die. So with this plan in place, the Pistons had an 8-7 lead after one quarter, but they were down 13-11. 13-11. Yes, 13 points versus 11 points after the half. To put this output into perspective, the Pistons had defeated the Baltimore Bullets 84-80 the game before, but they lost to the Washington Capitals 118-75 the game before that. So this particular game was not indicative of the league average. They could put the ball in the hoop back then. But back in Minneapolis, Fort Wayne just passed the ball around for the second half, making little effort to score in front of a crowd of 7,000 Laker fans, all of whom were booing. They were pissed, shouting every obscenity at the Pistons on the floor. Lakers led 17-14 after three quarters and only scored 1 point going into the final moments of the fourth. With 6 seconds left, Lakers up 18-17. Pistons rookie Larry Faust cuts to the basket on an inbound play, catches the pass, and lays it up over George Mikan for the win. Pistons win 19-18. And the boos continued to pour onto the floor. Murray Mendenhall, I got to learn how to say that right. Murray Mendenhall. Well, he didn't care because to him, a win was a win. And of note, George Mikan scored 15 of the Lakers' 18 points. Everyone else in the Lakers uniform that night went 0 for 6. Johnny Kundla, who was the Lakers coach at the time, after the game, he went on record to say, and I quote, "Play like that will kill professional basketball." Well, it didn't, but still, it made a very good case for a 24-second shot clock, which would finally show up in the league 4 years later. Hey, on another note, happy birthday to my pops, the original Lion King. I still miss you every day. Big Shaquille O'Neal fan, man. Anyway, there's a little something for the NBA history nerds. Things are certainly happening in the NBA, so let's talk about it.
Let's talk about something important.
Sean, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Looking at the top 8 teams in each conference, so basically teams that are currently in a playoff position, which one of these teams do you think, or which of these teams do you think would drop off by April? Who can't sustain this?
I think in the West, it's got to be Utah, right? Like this was a really nice start, and it seems as if their coach is getting the most out of his roster, and it looks like he's unlocked Lauri Markkanen's potential, the potential that we all saw in his rookie year that he hasn't really taken any steps on. It looks like he has now. I just don't trust his roster to be able to maintain this playoff positioning for 82 games. I think their next 15 or so games on the schedule are not going to be easy. I wouldn't be surprised if this team dipped below 500 within a couple weeks. I mean, if you look at the rest of the conference, you could make a case for Portland dropping down to a bottom tier playoff team, just because of the inexperience. But I still think they'll be a playoff team when all is said and done. And they're so young and explosive, and they have so much potential. They're just improving so much on a night-to-night basis. I just don't think Utah has the star power that Portland has outside of Lauri Markkanen.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think Utah probably can't sustain that. It's nice, it's cute, but
Exactly.
I agree that Portland won't stay at the top of the standings. I think, this is, again, it's cute, but they'll probably get into the play-in. I mean, realistically, I can see them dropping down a bit to maybe the 7th, 8th spot.
I mean, it's so early, and the teams are still so close together.
Exactly.
The East, like specifically, I think there's 3 games separating the 3 seed from the 12 seed in the East. So to be able to pick a team that's going to drop out of the East is a lot more difficult. We've already seen Cleveland drop back down to earth after their torrid start. Pacers are the 6th seed at 6. So, I think it's probably between those 2 teams. I think both of them have some nice young talent. The East is going to have a lot of teams fighting for playoff spots throughout the year. Chicago, Miami, and Philly are currently the 11, 10, and 9 seeds respectively. They're all going to move up in the standings, you think. Chicago is a little more of a question mark, but definitely Philly and Miami are going to, creep into that top 6 most likely. They're all Washington is what 7-6 or 8-7 right now. Yeah.
They'll probably fall out of there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Washington is definitely in that conversation. I was looking at like mostly the top 4 teams in each conference. I know you said top 8, but yeah, Washington definitely in that conversation to drop out. So if I had to pick a team right now, I'll say the Pacers, even though I do like their team, and I like they're playing that kind of Mike D'Antoni style. I think they're shooting like 43s a night or something like that. So, so it's they're gonna live by the 3 and die by the 3 all year. Canadian kid Benedict Mathurin, again, I'm gonna call him out. He looks like he belongs at the top of the league. He does not care that he's his first year. Highly confident, very strong scorer. So it's going to be fun to watch his career progress. I just think the Pacers are, again, just like Portland, a little bit too inexperienced, but they do have a decent future, I think.
On Indiana, yes, Mathurin he's looking solid.
Yeah.
Quite surprising coming from a rookie, but do you think, I mean, we've seen this before in Indiana. TJ Warren, out of nowhere. And then he came back down to earth. I really hope that Mathurin keeps this up, that this is his standard, and it'll only get better from here.
Yeah, TJ did that in the bubble, so I don't know. We saw a lot of weird things happen in the bubble. Like Jamal Murray was scoring like 60 points a game. Like, it was pretty crazy. So and then yeah, they got Halliburton too. So he's also having an all-star caliber year. So he's not going anywhere. That's the thing that's pretty much proven. But yeah, Mathurin, obviously, first year, very small sample size. You don't really know what to expect long term. Rookie out of Montreal, which is crazy to me that he's dropping 20 points a game off the bench.
Love it.
Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Shout out to Sacramento for dropping the ball on Halliburton.
On so many things. Sacramento dropping the ball on Luka.
Like, oh my goodness.
Are you kidding me? Like, nuts.
Hey, just a quick reminder to High and Low Lives. If you want to leave a question for us to answer on the show, just drop a DM on TikTok and More High and Low. And on Instagram, we're at Get High and Low. Links are on the show notes. It's time to sew up the back end of this segment. Keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. And when we come back, we're dropping our top 10. We'll be right back with More High and Low. This moment is brought to you by High and Low listeners. This week we went in a different direction, and I asked listeners to list their top NBA players so far this season, but numbers 11 through 15. And of course, we started from 15. We heard from the brother Shango in Shreveport, Louisiana, and his list goes like this. So at number 15, we start with LeBron James. Number 14 is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets. Number 13 is a player who's made the biggest leap this year, in my opinion. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shout out to Shai, doing his thing in OKC. Number 12 is the league's best villain, in many people's opinions, Trae Young, out of Atlanta. And number 11, the 11th best player in the league, according to Shango, is Kawhi Leonard, the cyborg. It's a good list, man. Surprised to see LeBron so low on the list, and no Pascal Siakam. Wonder how Mitch is going to take that. Interesting. Anyway, Shango, thank you. Appreciate you. Now let's get back to High and Low. And we are back. I'm Ike Amaechi, and I'm here with Sean Adon Khan, a.k.a. Sean Controversy. The NBA season is young, and to make any declarations based on the small sample size that we have would be foolish at best, but we are ambitious fools around here. And we're ranking the top 10 players based on what we've seen this season. Both Sean and myself will start with 10 through 6. We can talk about it, and then we'll reveal 5 through 1 in the next segment. So you got to listen to the next segment to get the top 5. And we just added a quick caveat. So players from teams in the bottom 10 in league standings are disqualified from this conversation unless they've been an all-star or an all-NBA selection in any of the last few seasons. So with that said, let's start it off, Sean. Who's your 10?
I'm not looking at you, Shai Gilgeous, because he would be in this conversation, but
he's balling.
He's balling. He's hooping. Yeah, definitely honorable mention. But doesn't qualify. So at 10, I really, really wanted to put Toronto's own Pascal Siakam here, but I didn't. I went with Devin Booker at 10. I think that has to do a little bit with availability. Siakam's been injured for about 4 or 5 games now. Team record obviously gave Booker the edge as well. But it is nice to know that Siakam is kind of knocking on that door. His preseason, or ESPN's preseason ranking of 30 was obviously wrong and really dumb. travesty. It's just a shot to Toronto. So I had to shout that out. I know this isn't a Raptors podcast, but definitely honorable mention to Pascal. Is flirting with a triple double almost every night. But Booker, while Pascal has the edge in assists and rebounds, Booker has the edge in points and true shooting percentage. So all things considered, I went with Booker.
You know what? I have Booker at 10 as well.
Okay,
so
perfect.
It's pure coincidence. I think he belongs in the top 10. I like Pascal, but also just beyond the numbers, the Suns are in a great position right now. I mean, they've lost a couple games, which has kind of thrown their record in a bit of a tizzy. But CP3 struggled. Cam Johnson's out with an injury. We have this Jay Crowder situation where he's just not even available. So Phoenix has been in flux, but they've held court in the standings, and it's because of Devin Booker. Mikal Bridges, he's had a good start to the season, but Booker looks great. I love his on-off numbers. He's the reason that they're rolling. So
for sure.
I see him at 10.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, what's next?
Who's your 9?
So at 9, I'm going with the old vet Jimmy Butler. He may not have the prettiest stat line and percentages in the regular season, but come playoff time, not many players are capable of raising their level more than him. I think he's one of the most competitive and intense players in the NBA, especially at playoff time. And he's still doing it at an all-star level on both ends of the floor. So until I see a significant drop in production from him, he's still in my top 10. And he's also been one of my favorite players in the league for the past however many seasons he's been in the NBA. So, yeah, I still got him in my top 10.
Wow. Okay, so this is where we diverge, I guess. We can use that word, diverge. And it brings up the question that we had last week in our mailbag episode where they were talking about who is leaving the top 10, but who's entering the top 10. I think that was from Shango.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example because I don't have Jimmy Butler in the top 10. He is an honorable mention. But at number 9, I have John Morant. Now, some people are probably going to scold me and say, hey, you should have John Morant higher. Hey, whatever. John Morant is at number 9. And just to keep it succinct, he's just been on a run as of late. I think he's leading the league in ESPN highlights. I think that's a very valuable stat these days. But most importantly, the Grids are winning. They're winning games. I know people are starting to question whether he makes his team better or at least the players around him better. But, I mean, John Morant is he's too good. We said it before. We said it before the season even started. This guy's box office.
Yeah, I mean, Desmond Bane was playing at an all-star level before he got injured. Is he getting a little bit of an injury-prone tag, Desmond Bane?
I think so.
Right?
So,
I mean, he plays with John Morant, and he's really good when Ja plays too. So, I'm not sure how much weight that question holds. And again, I think when we're ranking these guys, we're splitting hairs, right? So if you have someone at 9 and I have him at 6, like what is really the difference? But at number 8, I got Jason Tatum.
Okay.
I think Tatum at 8 just shows you how much talent there is in the NBA. I feel like in any other era, Tatum would be a top 3 to 5 guy easily. It almost feels disrespectful putting him at 8, considering how well the Celtics are playing. But as I'm ranking my players, I just with the eye test alone, I just couldn't put him ahead of any of the guys on my list.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, in terms of his placement on your list, yes, of course, I have him in a different place on my list. But Tatum, it does feel a bit wrong to have Tatum not in the top 3, but he's not in my top 3. I have KD at number 8, actually. I don't know. This is the one that feels a bit wrong for me, but I'm going to do it anyway. Brooklyn is not good. They're not a good basketball team. And they're a team that's in complete flux. They've been shrouded in controversy all season. Even last season. But KD is still one of the best players on the planet. Like I said last week, he scores better than anyone. He defends, and he's been the Nets' most reliable player. the last few seasons, which I got to give this guy marks for that. Speaking of marks, dear Sean Marks, please trade Kevin Durant to a team that deserves his talent. That is all.
That's a great request.
All right, you guys, what's next?
Oh man, who's your 7?
So at 7, I am going with Joel Embiid.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is obviously a monster. He owns the paint against anyone he goes up against. I think what's holding him back from, like, I think last year he was probably a top 3 guy. I think what's holding him back at this point, obviously, his team's record is pretty bad right now. You know, we all know he's got some weird personality traits. He seems to bow out in the big moments. With like, whether it's sickness or his stamina. You know, I think they need a new coach. I think if they ever get a new coach and get some fresh blood in there, we might see a bit of a resurgence from the team. But you know, where they are in the standings right now, despite how dominant he is, I have him at 7, but he is not leaving that top 10 anytime soon.
Agreed. Embiid's in the top 10 to stay for quite some time, for as long as he wants it.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But at 7, I have Donovan Mitchell.
Wow.
Yeah, we talked about Cleveland just a few minutes back. They're a nice surprise. It's been cute.
There it is again.
And that's the third time saying this. And listen, Donovan Mitchell is the leader of that team. He stepped in. He's turned a solid Cavs team that looked like a play-in team, to be honest with you. And he's turned them into, I would say this is a team that is capable of being a top-tier NBA team. I know it's early, but I'm interested to see if the Cavs can sustain this. I know they've fallen a little bit as of late, but I see huge potential. And let's just keep in mind that Mitchell's done this before. He's been able to lead a team to the best record in the NBA, or at least one of the best records in the NBA before. And this was a Utah squad that I feel was like not quite as talented at the top end as this Cleveland squad is. So I'll be very interested to see what happens. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell at number 7. Who you got at 6?
Yeah, very good points. At 6, I have KD.
This is egregious. Do you hear me? Egregious.
I know I was flirting with dropping KD out of the top 10 last week.
Yes, you were.
But enough of that nonsense. You know, he's still KD. You know, he was right about his team being absolute garbage, but he's still incredible and definitely deserves a spot in my top 10.
Okay, well, this makes me happy, Shai. It makes me happy to know that you've come back down.
Swayed.
You've been swayed. Yes, KD. And you have KD higher on the list than I do. So this is a great moment.
Yeah.
I actually have Jason Tatum at 6.
Right.
But you know what? I mean, I think Mitch said this. You know, when it's like 6 to 10, you're kind of splitting hairs. And I think you even said this. Like, you're splitting hairs at this point. But Jason Tatum, I don't know. I think prior to this season, many people thought that Tatum would be a big part of that MVP discussion. And if he continues to play this well and Boston stays at the top of the standings, I just don't see how you can't keep him in that MVP discussion. And if he's in that MVP discussion, he's definitely going to be in that top 5, top 6 spot. And I think he's just playing at that level right now. So I have Jason Tatum at number 6.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that. It's crazy. There's like 7 players averaging over 30 points a game right now, and Giannis is averaging 29.9, and that's the 8th. So I don't think we've ever seen this many guys average that many points. And I think the NBA is scoring at a record pace now too, so it's not surprising.
All-time high.
Yeah.
All-time high right now. Yeah. And I feel like Giannis is kind of taking it easy.
Yeah.
It's scary to think that he's actually like,
exactly.
You guys cook. We'll be there. We'll see you in April.
The team's still doing really well. Like, they have the second best record in the league. So anyway, we'll get more into that after the break.
After the break. Look at this guy, Sean,
throwing
it to the break. And on that note, yes, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more High and Low.
Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Okay, next, what's his name with his back to me?
And we are back. We've shared the bottom 5 of our top 10. I say bottom 5 like it's a bad thing, but I mean, there's still top 10 players in the league, man. It's quite a distinction. But hey, let's move on to our top 5. And yeah, starting with number 5. Sean, who do you have?
Yeah, I feel like some people might have like Tatum at like number 1. You know what I mean? Like I have him at 8, so again, splitting hairs. But at 5, I'm going with the kid. I'm going with Ja Morant. He's obviously super athletic. He's amazing. He's a really smart player as well. I just think he needs to get off Twitter. I think he needs to grow up a little bit. But again, like the 5th best player in the NBA is really nothing to scoff at. He's got an incredibly bright future. I think Shaq said he was going to be number 1 player in the league in the next 2 or 3 seasons. Giannis and Luka might have something to say about that, but that's definitely his ceiling. His ceiling is the best player in the world. So we'll see.
He's special.
Yeah.
At number 5, I have. Hold on. Let me just put on the bulletproof vest so I don't take too many shots for this one. I have Nikola Jokic.
Is it safe?
I have Nikola Jokic at number 5.
No bullets. Mitch didn't show up this week, so you're safe.
That's true. That's true.
He actually had Jokic at number 1 until he found out Mitch wasn't going to be here.
Made a quick switch.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, Jokic at 5. Listen, we just talked about Ja. Jokic is not the walking highlight reel that Ja Morant is, nor Giannis or Luka or even Steph Curry. But he's doing what he's been doing the last few seasons. It feels like Jokic has been quiet, but then if you just look at his numbers, you're like, oh, okay, you're still doing what you do. Like his scoring is down, but I mean, he's still doing everything else. His PR is still hovering at historic levels. Denver's winning, which is very important. And I just see no reason to drop him out of that top 5. I just think he's still a top 5 player in the league. That may sound blasphemous for people who are hardcore believers that Jokic is the best player on the planet and that he's going to three-peat as an MVP. But hey, again, early days and small sample size. And at this point, I just feel like Jokic is number 5. So.
Yeah, that's a great segue into my number 4 because that's where I have Nikola Jokic. Like what more can I say about the super skilled big man, possibly the most skilled big man ever. Back-to-back MVPs. His team's got a top 5 record in the league again. He's averaging nearly a triple-double while shooting over 60% from the field. I think the one thing holding him back is his team. Like I feel like his supporting cast needs to play a little closer to their potential. I still think they're a real threat to win the title. And just to go along with my disrespectful theme, it feels disrespectful putting the back-to-back MVP at number 4. But I really had a hard time picking him over my top 3.
That's it. It's not a shot at Jokic, but it's just more about the guys in front of him.
Exactly.
Wait for it.
I have Joel Embiid at number 4.
There we go.
That's amazing. I really wanted to put Embiid ahead of Jokic, but
this was for you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you so much.
For you.
So happy.
Philly's underwhelming. Okay, the team is just not playing at the level that we expected them to play at. But Embiid he's just putting up huge numbers, man. We have an even smaller sample size with Embiid just because he hasn't played. Like he's missed about 6 games this season thus far, and we're not even a quarter of the way through. But I love what I've seen thus far, And I just see a course correction in Philly's future with a healthy Embiid, and I see no reason why he won't sustain this output. And I think if he's playing at this level, then yes, he's playing at the level of the fourth best player in the NBA right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely not mad at that answer. Embiid belongs in the conversation of being the best player in the world. When you really think about it, you're like, if you had to pick one, your top 5 player, or your top starting lineup, he's your center on most people's teams. It's either him or Jokic. So to be in that conversation is very legitimate.
All right, you guys, what's next?
At number 3, I'm going with the future first ballot Hall of Famer Steph Curry. He just dropped a 50-piece, albeit in a losing effort, but his level has not dropped at all. He's still doing his top 10 of all time thing, regardless of where his team is in the standings or how his season ends up for them. He's done nothing to not be in this discussion. Steph is still one of, if not the best players in the world.
We're lining up. I have Steph at 3 as well. Hey, you said it best. Steph is a bright spot in an otherwise dark season for the Dubs.
So far.
At least a dark start.
Yeah.
So far. Again, it's a small sample size. And, I think the Warriors can easily rattle off 10 to 12 straight wins and just jump back into the pack. But, this is a start that's kind of alarming. Anyway, regardless, Steph, he's been special. Just as you said, his on-off numbers just tell a very different story. The Dubs outscore their opponents when Steph Curry is on the court cooking, which is what he usually does. And he's just been a top 5 player the last several seasons. This season's no different. But as you said, top 10 player of all time, first ballot Hall of Famer. Steph is Steph, man. He's the 3rd best player in the NBA right now, like without question. Yeah. I think we're gonna line up for the rest of this. Let's see who you have.
We'll see. I really, really wanted to put Luka at number 1 because I think everyone by now, our listeners should all know by now how much of a fan I am of his game, but he's not quite there yet. And the number 1 guy does it at an MVP level on both ends of the floor. Yeah. Luka can win big games for you by himself, and he's probably the most clutch player in the league right now. I think it's between him and Steph who I would want to take the last shot of a game. If his team wasn't a bunch of garbage men, maybe he would be number 1. But he's not quite there yet.
Sanitation department. Oh boy. I love watching Luka this season specifically because it feels like he's ascended. He's been improving incrementally every single season, and he started at such a high level.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's been able to get better and better every single season, and then now we're seeing him just playing at such an amazing level, it's so nice to watch. We've known he was poised to take ownership of that spot in the top 5. We just knew that Luka was just going to grab it, but he's got a stranglehold of that number 2 spot without question. The Mavs they're mid. This is a mid team, and I said it before, they broke even in the offseason. They didn't provide Luka with any help whatsoever, but he's just been able to be special. And keeping the Mavs in the pack with Christian Wood as your number 2, that deserves something. It definitely deserves to catapult him above the likes of Steph, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, for sure. But I think it's obvious who the best player in the NBA is, who the number 1 is. You go ahead.
Yeah, I got Donovan Mitchell. I'm kidding. It's we all know it's the Greek freak. It's Giannis. He's been the top player in the NBA for me ever since his MVP season. He hasn't lost that throne, in my opinion. He's really done nothing to not be number 1 for me. His team has, I think, the best or the second best record in the league right now. What more can you really say about the guy? He's missed some time. I think he's missed 4 or 5 games. But by the end of the season, as long as he's played 60 plus games and his team has a top 5 record, his missed time won't matter, and he'll again be one of the favorites for MVP. I think the only way he can take his career to the next level is by signing in Toronto. Right? Raptor fans, Mitch? Right?
Some people would say it's if he signs in LA with the Lakers, but hey, I couldn't agree more. Giannis is the best player on the planet, hands down. This is the consensus. I heard Giannis say that he has it all: the life, the looks, and the love of his family. And he does. He has it all, except for one thing, he said.
He can't shoot.
3-point
can't shoot. That was the best. He's so humble. Like I don't know. He does have everything. He's got the personality. He's got the game. He can't shoot. He can shoot when when he has time.
Yeah. But hey, he said only because God wants to keep him humble. That is why he can't shoot. So
it was humble, but it was also very conceited. Like he was 100%. He was very, very good at being humble. if that makes any sense.
Come on, let's wrap this up.
Hey, you want to recap your top 10 from 10 to 1?
Yeah, so at 10 I got Devin Booker. At 9 I got Jimmy Buckets. At 8 I got Jason Tatum. 7 Joel Embiid. 6 Kevin Durant, despite my almost knocking him out of my top 10 last week. 5 I got Ja Morant. 4 Nikola Jokic. 3 Steph Curry. 2 Luka Doncic. And number 1 Greek Freak.
Nice. And at 10 I have Devin Booker as well. I had Ja Morant at number 9. KD, Kevin Durant at number 8. Donovan Mitchell at number 7. Jason Tatum at number 6. At number 5, I have Nikola Jokic. Sorry, Mitch. Nikola Jokic is at number 5. Joel Embiid at number 4. Steph Curry, the chef, at number 3. Luka Doncic at number 2. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Nigerian Nightmare, at number 1. Best player on the planet, hands down. All right. We're going to have to get Mitch and Steven and Hugo to share their top 10s.
Why the fuck I can't shoot 3-point shots?
That brings us to the end of this episode of High and Low. Thank you, Sean. Hey, thank you. Seriously, because I know that things are dangling by a thread, man. You're just waiting. You're waiting for the baby to come. You're just like, And that's just one of many, many, many responsibilities that you have in your life right now. So I really do appreciate it. Hey, subscribe to High and Low anywhere you find podcasts and make us a part of your weekly routine. I'm saying that to you, High and Low listeners, not to Sean. And you know where to find us. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Links to those are in the show notes. So where can listeners find you, Sean? Can they find you? Do you want them to find you?
I don't really want to be found, but if you must, you can find me at Sean_controversy on Instagram.
Yeah, man. Go find Sean, man. Go find Sean. And when the baby does come, send him those congrats. He'll appreciate it. He'll appreciate it. And hey, once again, music is by Live of the Enjoy Music Group. You can find Live on Twitter and Instagram at LYVE. Additional music is by Sonny Rockwell of The Goodness. Can't find that guy anywhere. I've tried. Sound design is by Vonn+Abrahamm. This is a Vonn+Abrahamm podcast, just in case you didn't know. So on behalf of Sean Khan, I'm Ike Amaechi. Thank you for listening to High and Low, and we'll see you next week.